take the square root of 60 and write it in its simplest form. To simplify a square root, we want to take the radicand, the number underneath the radical, and we want to see if we can take anything out of that square root. So to do that, we want to take 60 and break it up into its prime factorization. So in step number 1, we want to rewrite 60 as its prime factorization. Well, 60 is equal to 4 times 15. But 4 and 15 are not prime. So we need to continue to rewrite this. 4 is the same as 2 times 2, and 15 is the same as 3 times 5. 2, 3, and 5 are all prime. That means that this is the prime factorization of 60. So we can rewrite the square root of 60 as the square root of 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. So instead of writing 60, we wrote out its prime factorization. Now let's look through all these factors and see if we have multiples of any factors. We want to see if we can write any factors squared. Here we have 2 2's. So instead of writing 2 times 2, we could rewrite that as 2 squared. So let's do that. We still have our square root, and instead of 2 times 2, we write 2 squared. And we still have our 3 and our 5. Now we have 2 squared times 3 times 5. Next, let's use the product property of square roots to break up this radical. The product property of square roots states that if we have a square root with everything being multiplied underneath it, we can rewrite that as multiple square roots being multiplied together. So here we can break this up into the square root of 2 squared times the square root of 3 times 5. Here, we took our radical and broke it up into 2 radicals being multiplied together. Now let's take this and simplify it. Looking at the square root of 2 squared, we can take this square root and this square and cancel them out. So we're just left with 2. So we have 2 times the square root of 3 times 5. Now 3 and 5 are not perfect squares, so we can't do anything more with them. That means we just multiply them back together to be 15. And now we have our simplified form. We took the square root of 60 and broke it up into its prime factorization. Then we rewrote any multiple factors as a factor squared. So here we took 2 times 2 and wrote it as 2 squared. Then we took the product property of square roots and used it to break up our one radical into multiple radicals being multiplied together. Then we simplified and found that the simplified form of the square root of 60 is 2 times the square root of 15.